Georgia's famous sweet peach is now rotting from the inside, and the signs aren't pretty. Things get even more alarming when you look at a housing market that's sliding toward chaos, with forecasts warning of a possible 47% crash. The southern humidity might feel intense, but it's nothing compared to the pressure of trying to keep up with inflated mortgage payments in overpriced neighborhoods. So we're packing up, loading the trunk, and heading out on a road trip to explore 10 Georgia cities where buying a home today can feel like burning through your savings. Stick around for the full journey because the metro area at number 1 has been heavily taken over by corporate investors, and the numbers are hard to believe. And later, the coastal hotspot we'll visit is already seeing its vacation rental market collapse in real time. If you're wondering where that 47% figure comes from, you're not alone. Recent forecasts from Florida Atlantic University, along with data from the Atlanta Federal Reserve, show a growing gap between local incomes and home prices. In some of the most overpriced areas, prices would need to fall by nearly half just to return to normal affordability levels. For anyone who bought at the peak, that reality is especially hard to ignore. Before we get moving, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your own local housing experiences in the comments. Now buckle up, because we're heading straight into the center of the southern housing crash. Number 10. Valdosta. We're starting this rather gloomy road trip deep in southern Georgia, close to the Florida border, in a place where the Spanish moss may be stunning, but the housing numbers tell a much harsher story. This city has long depended on the economic support provided by Moody Air Force Base, which has been a major lifeline for the area. But even steady military income isn't enough to shield this housing market from a significant downturn that's already unfolding. Picture this. You're trying to sell your charming 3-bedroom ranch, only to discover you're competing with nearly every neighbor on your street. Recent data from Redfin shows that active housing inventory in this border town has surged by 32% over the past year. At this point, it feels like every third home has a for sale sign out front, slowly collecting dust. Buyers have practically disappeared, and the timeline makes that painfully clear. According to Realtor.com, the median time a home spends on the market has stretched to 45 days, leaving sellers increasingly anxious as their properties sit vacant. It's especially tough for families who purchased at the height of the market, only to be relocated due to military orders and realize they're stuck. You can almost feel the desperation building across the area. Zillow analysts report that about 35% of current listings have already reduced their asking prices just to attract a single showing. That's not a small tweak, it's a major pullback from unrealistic expectations. Local MLS data adds to the concern, showing the median home price dropping from around $310,000 at its peak to roughly $275,000 in under a year. And the situation gets worse when you factor in population trends. Data from the United States Census Bureau shows that population growth has slowed noticeably, meaning there aren't enough new residents moving in to absorb the growing number of homes for sale. You simply can't keep building endless subdivisions in a town where the average income hovers around $45,000 and expect remote workers from out of state to keep the market afloat. At the end of the day, the numbers just don't add up, and sellers here are finally starting to come out of that pandemic-driven illusion. Number 9. Warner Robins. As you drive a couple of hours north into central Georgia, you arrive in a city that expanded far beyond what it could realistically sustain during the era of ultra-low interest rates. This used to be a steady, low-key military town built around Robins Air Force Base, a place known for its stability. But developers got overly ambitious and started treating it like the next Silicon Valley. Now, reality is catching up fast. Imagine long stretches of brand-new cul-de-sacs lined with partially completed homes that have been left sitting idle. Data from the United States Census Bureau shows that, near the end of the boom, developers were pulling building permits at a pace about 22% higher than historical norms. In other words, they were constructing homes for buyers who never actually materialized. And now, those same builders are starting to panic. Research from John Burns. Real estate consulting indicates that cancellation rates for new home contracts in this region have climbed to around 25%. Buyers are walking away, even forfeiting their deposits because they simply can't manage an 8% mortgage tied to an inflated purchase price. It's especially tough to watch when the local median household income sits at roughly $55,000 a year. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, many residents just don't qualify for these overpriced new constructions. The financial pressure on everyday people is becoming impossible to ignore. Adam data reports that foreclosure starts in the county have increased by 18% over the past 2 quarters. It may be a gradual shift, but the trend is clearly moving in the wrong direction. Even property investors are taking hits. If you picked up a rental property here expecting to profit from military housing stipends, that plan likely hasn't worked out. Apartment list data shows that rents have actually declined year over year, dropping by roughly 3.5%. So now you've got a situation where homes aren't selling, builders are cutting prices, and rental income isn't enough to cover high mortgage payments. It's a textbook boom and bust cycle, and unfortunately, it's the local residents who are left dealing with a landscape full of unsold spec homes and broken expectations. Number 8. Athens. As you head northeast, you arrive in the quintessential college town, known for its lively energy and deep traditions. Home to the University of Georgia, this city has a reputation for unforgettable fall football Saturdays and beautiful historic neighborhoods. But beneath that charming college town surface, the housing market has taken a serious hit, largely driven by unchecked investor activity. Imagine being a first-time buyer searching for a simple starter home, only to get outbid by a hedge fund planning to turn it into a high-priced student rental. According to analysts at CoreLogic, corporate and institutional investors purchased around 22% of all single-family homes here during the peak of the market frenzy. They essentially treated entire neighborhoods like a game board, buying up properties left and right. But now that momentum has stalled. Data from CoStar Group shows that developers flooded the area with upscale student housing, boosting multifamily inventory by an enormous 15%. As a result, smaller landlords who overpaid for properties are now struggling to find tenants willing to pay those sky-high rents. Many of those homes are now sitting empty. On the sales side, the situation looks just as rough. Realtor.com data indicates that about 42% of active listings in the county have seen price reductions in just the past month. Sellers are constantly lowering their expectations, trying to keep up with a rapidly declining market. You can practically watch equity disappear in real time. Local MLS figures reveal that the median listing price has dropped from an inflated $460,000 to around $395,000. That's a substantial loss in value in a very short period. Now consider the people who actually keep this town running. The Bureau of Economic Analysis notes that wages in this service-driven economy have not kept pace with rising costs. It creates a frustrating reality where those working in cafes, maintaining campus buildings, and supporting the university can't even afford modest housing within a 30-minute drive. At some point, this town became dominated by out-of-state investors and large financial firms. And now, with the student rental market oversupplied and borrowing costs much higher, the entire system is starting to unravel, leaving local residents to deal with the fallout while simply trying to find a stable place to live. Number 7. Augusta. Continuing east toward the South Carolina border, we arrive in a city best known for its iconic green jackets and the world-famous golf tournament that takes place every spring. For a while, many believed this market was untouchable, snapping up properties with the idea of renting them out for that one highly profitable week in April. But that strategy isn't holding up anymore. The boom has clearly run its course. Imagine taking on a huge loan for a second home, fully counting on visiting golfers to cover your mortgage payments. According to data from AirDNA, revenue per available room for short-term rentals in this area has dropped by a staggering 32% over the past year. Travelers just aren't willing to pay those sky-high $600 per night rates like they used to. What was once an Airbnb gold rush has now turned into a chaotic sell-off, with inexperienced investors scrambling to get out. Zillow data shows that available housing inventory has jumped by 41% compared to the same time last year. You can almost feel the urgency as these reluctant landlords try to unload their fully furnished properties, and selling them hasn't been easy. Redfin reports that the median time on market has stretched to about 52 days, leaving many sellers stuck waiting. It's hard not to notice the irony. People who once believed buying an older home near a golf course was a guaranteed path to early retirement are now facing a much harsher reality. Even with job growth tied to the military's cyber command presence, local incomes simply don't support these inflated home values. Federal Reserve data shows that the median household income here is just under $52,000. As a result, the broader housing market is taking a noticeable hit. According to the local board of realtors, median home sale prices have fallen by around 11% year over year. Once you look past the excitement of tournament season, what remains is an oversupplied market, anxious sellers, and local families who are still priced out of buying in their own city. In the end, it's a housing downturn dressed up in a polished country club image. Number 6. Macon. Heading back toward the middle of the state, you arrive in a historic southern town that unexpectedly became a hotspot for bargain real estate flipping schemes. During the pandemic, out-of-state investors spotted rock-bottom prices on Zillow and assumed they could quickly renovate old homes, throw in some gray luxury vinyl flooring, and double their profits. Now imagine watching your already struggling neighborhood get snapped up by online investors who have never even visited the area. According to Adam data, home flipping activity in this county has collapsed by an eye-opening 43% over the past year. Many of those inexperienced flippers ran out of money, leaving behind half-renovated houses deteriorating on street corners. At the core of the problem is the harsh economic reality facing the local population. The United States Census Bureau reports that the poverty rate here sits at around 26%. You simply can't build a high-end housing market in a place where 1 in 4 residents is struggling just to afford basic necessities like groceries. Now, the outside investment money is pulling back fast. Data from mortgage analytics firm Black Knight shows that early-stage mortgage delinquencies have climbed to about 6.5% in this area. These investors are falling behind on payments because they can't flip the homes, and renting them out profitably isn't an option either. In fact, the rental market has taken a serious hit. Additional census data shows that the residential vacancy rate has climbed past 11%. Entire neighborhoods are starting to feel empty, as landlords hold firm on high rents that local working-class residents simply can't afford. And to make matters worse, local MLS data shows that median home prices have dropped by nearly 14% from their pandemic-era peak. It's frustrating to see a city with such deep musical roots and beautiful historic architecture get caught up in this kind of speculative frenzy. Now the community is left dealing with rising property taxes, unfinished renovations, and abandoned properties as the market slowly corrects itself. It's hard not to feel for the long-term residents who aren't looking for quick profits. They just want a stable place to live, not the aftermath of a failed real estate experiment. Number 5. Savannah. Continuing our journey all the way to the stunning Atlantic coastline, we arrive in a city celebrated for its eerie history, charming cobblestone streets, and towering oak trees draped in moss. But right now, the most unsettling thing here isn't a ghost tour. It's the rapid unraveling of the local housing market. Imagine purchasing a historic townhouse at peak prices, only to later realize the numbers behind that investment never truly made sense. A recent study from Florida Atlantic University found that homes in this metro area are overvalued by an astonishing 38% when compared to long-term historical trends. It's essentially a massive financial bubble just waiting to burst. One of the biggest factors driving this downturn is the soaring cost of simply maintaining a property. According to insurance industry data highlighted by Bankrate, homeowner insurance premiums in this coastal region have surged by an average of 35% in just 2 years, largely due to increased hurricane risk and coastal flooding concerns. Those rising monthly costs are putting serious pressure on property owners. As a result, demand for vacation homes has dropped sharply. The Mortgage Bankers Association reports that applications for second home loans in this area have fallen by more than 52%. The wealthy out-of-state buyers who once fueled this market have largely stepped away. You can see the shift clearly, especially in the historic district. Realtor.com data shows that active listings have increased by 46% compared to last year. Even high-end properties are now sitting unsold as the market runs out of buyers willing to overpay. Zillow analytics indicate that around 45% of current listings have undergone notable price cuts. There's a certain irony in watching investors who once expected easy profits realize those opportunities have vanished. The appeal of coastal living starts to fade quickly when property taxes climb, insurance becomes harder to secure, and short-term rentals sit vacant during what should be peak season. What once looked like a dream investment is, for many, turning into a very expensive lesson. Number 4. Alpharetta. As we head into the northern suburbs of the state capital, we arrive in an affluent community that worked hard to position itself as the South's version of a tech hub. During the boom, this area attracted a wave of high-earning remote workers relocating from the West Coast, pushing luxury home prices to extreme levels. But now that the tech surge has cooled off, the local housing market is starting to unravel. Imagine stretching your finances to purchase a standard 4-bedroom brick house for $800,000, confident that your tech income would always hold strong. According to Redfin data, sales of high-end homes in this upscale suburb have dropped sharply, down about 34% compared to last year. The pool of wealthy buyers has essentially dried up. A major reason behind this shift is the changing job landscape. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports a clear slowdown in the tech sector, with widespread layoffs hitting exactly the group that once fueled this housing surge. Many of those remote workers from California are either losing their jobs or being required to return to offices on the West Coast. With demand fading, properties are sitting unsold for longer periods. Local MLS data shows that homes priced above $700,000 are now taking much longer to sell, with median days on market rising from around 20 days to more than 45. Sellers are being forced to adjust their expectations. Zillow analytics reveal that roughly 38% of listings in this high-income area have reduced their prices by at least $30,000. It's a tough reality check for homeowners who believe their suburban properties would continue climbing toward million-dollar valuations. On top of that, financing has become a serious hurdle. The Mortgage Bankers Association notes that rising interest rates on jumbo loans have made it significantly harder for buyers to afford these expensive homes. When you combine tech sector layoffs with mortgage rates hovering near 8%, the result is a once booming suburb now caught in a downward cycle. Luxury properties that once symbolized success are increasingly becoming financial burdens for upper-middle-class families who bought in at the peak. Number 3. Gainesville. We head north on a scenic route toward Lake Lanier, arriving in a town that completely overextended itself during the remote work boom. At one point, people poured into this area, convinced they could permanently enjoy lakeside living while attending Zoom meetings in their pajamas. But once companies started calling employees back to the office, everything began to unravel, and now the housing market is slipping fast. Imagine the stress of realizing your daily routine now includes a grueling hour-and-a-half commute through heavy traffic because remote work is no longer an option. According to the National Association of Realtors, affordability in this area has hit a record low, with local wages nowhere near high enough to support inflated lakefront home prices. Now, a wave of regretful homeowners is flooding the market. Realtor.com data shows that active listings in this lakeside city have surged by a staggering 55% in just 1 year. It's as if everyone is trying to exit at once, creating a bottleneck of sellers. With so many properties available, prices are dropping quickly. Redfin analysts report that the median home sale price has already declined by about 8.5% compared to last year. The once popular idea of flipping a lake house for a huge profit is no longer realistic. Even developers are pulling back. Local census permit data indicates a sharp slowdown in new residential construction, as builders recognize that the demand from relocating city residents has dried up. Meanwhile, longtime local workers, like those employed in poultry plants or hospitals, were pushed out of their own housing market by wealthy newcomers. And now, those same newcomers are leaving just as quickly as they arrived, forced out by return-to-office mandates. What's left behind is an oversupply of expensive homes, worsening traffic, and a housing market that continues to decline, pulling the town down with it. Number 2. Columbus. Continuing west toward the Georgia border along the Chattahoochee River, we arrive in a large military-centered city that is now dealing with a severe real estate downturn. Supported by the major military installation now called Fort Moore, this area became a prime target for corporate landlords searching for inexpensive properties to scale up their portfolios. But that strategy has backfired in a big way. Picture trying to manage a heavily leveraged rental portfolio in a city where people are actually moving out rather than moving in. According to the United States Census Bureau, this county has experienced net outmigration over the past 2 years, meaning the population is shrinking instead of growing. With fewer residents available to occupy homes, The massive wave of investor-owned properties is becoming harder to sustain. Out-of-state investors are now facing significant financial losses. Rental data from Zumper shows that average rents in this market have dropped by about 4.5% year over year. The reality is that you can't demand high rents in a place where the median per capita income is only around $32,000, based on federal economic statistics. As the rental fundamentals weaken, larger institutional investors are starting to pull back. Local MLS data shows that median home prices have fallen by roughly 12% from their peak. Many corporate landlords are now selling off properties, flooding the market with entry-level homes that are often poorly maintained and overpriced relative to local incomes. The level of price reductions is striking. Zillow data indicates that about 44% of active listings have undergone price cuts just to attract basic interest or even a single showing. Sellers are increasingly anxious as homes sit vacant for months at a time. On top of that, Black Knight mortgage data shows early-stage delinquencies rising above 5% in the area. Families who bought during the peak of the market are now struggling under the pressure of inflation and stagnant wages. It's difficult to watch a historic riverfront community get treated like a speculative playground for large investment firms, only for local residents to be left dealing with the fallout as values continue to fall back toward reality. Number 1. Atlanta. We finally arrive in the capital city itself, the central force behind what many are now calling the Southern housing bubble, and a major reason analysts are warning about a potential 47% price correction. This massive metro area became the flagship example of the pandemic-era real estate boom. But behind the modern skyline and rapid growth lies a housing market that has been deeply distorted by corporate buying and excessive construction. Imagine trying to purchase a home while competing directly with Wall Street-backed investment firms. According to striking data from CoreLogic, institutional investors made up about 32% of all single-family home purchases in this metro area at the peak of the boom. Entire neighborhoods were acquired in bulk, tightening supply and pushing prices to levels that were no longer sustainable. Now, those same conditions are fueling the expectation of a sharp correction. Research from Moody's Analytics and Florida Atlantic University shows that local income levels simply don't support a median home price near $400,000. The gap between wages and housing costs has become so wide that prices would need a significant adjustment just to return to historical norms. The rental market is already showing signs of strain. According to CoStar Group, developers added more than 40,000 new apartment units in a single year, creating a major oversupply. As a result, apartment list data shows that rents have fallen by around 6%, putting pressure on investors who were counting on steady cash flow. With rental income weakening and ownership costs rising, institutional owners are beginning to pull back. Redfin data shows that active single-family inventory has increased by an extraordinary 62% compared to the previous year. In response, many investors are rushing to sell before conditions worsen further. The market is starting to freeze. Federal Reserve mortgage data shows that home loan applications in the area have dropped to levels not seen since the Great Financial Crisis. For recent buyers who entered at peak prices, the situation is becoming increasingly difficult to manage. The economic engine of the region is showing real signs of strain, and everyday residents are often the ones caught in the middle of it. As you travel through the state and see how many families are being impacted by this rapid shift, it becomes clear just how volatile the housing landscape has become. What began as a strong period of growth has quickly turned into a cycle of overpricing, oversupply, and mounting financial pressure. If you found this road trip useful, feel free to share it with someone, leave a comment with your own local housing experiences, and subscribe for more updates. Thanks for coming along on the journey, and take care navigating this unpredictable market.